Hello, leaders. I'm Arlene Smith, and this is Healing the Hearts of Healthcare, the Leadership Edition. You are being called to action. You are a leader. You care for people who care for other people. And what you do is so important in not just ensuring amazing care happens, but in ensuring that your team members who have, for many of them, may have been living since the pandemic and need healing of their hearts. It's a call to action for you to help be present, to learn different ways to lead, to help them to heal their hearts. There will be healing involved. There will be times where we will share stories and reflections and learn from one another. But join me as we go on this journey, because I promise you, at the end, you will leave feeling that you can do this and you can do it well. Welcome, leaders. I am so excited that you are here. So give yourself like a huge pat on the back, because kudos to you. You are here because you recognize that you are a leader and you want to be an exemplary leader. And you are on this mission and committed to growing and developing yourself, to building a really strong team that is connected and caring and supportive. And you are here to help maybe heal your heart, but also help them on their journey to heal the hearts of healthcare. So I want to start today's podcast off with just asking you to close your eyes for a minute. And only do this if you're safe, right? You're not in the car. So I want you to close your eyes, and I want you to picture that you're coming to work and you're entering through the doors. And when you're entering through sort of the main doors of your healthcare facility or workplace, that you're feeling pretty good and confident and you're ready to tackle that day. And from the moment you walk through those doors, all of a sudden you start to notice and feel the energy shift, and that there's a sense of maybe panic, or there's a sense of people that are not getting along and maybe there's some conflict. And I want you to imagine how quickly that experience affects you and your ability to lead your teams. Well, it should, because you're a human being, number one. And number two, it absolutely affects the way you lead your teams. But I'm here to teach you different strategies and ways that you, as a leader of a healthcare worker, can help them in their healing of their hearts. But not just that, this recognition that, all of us need healing in healthcare, because the work that we do is really challenging and difficult. There's an exchange of energy when we are healing other people, when we're providing direct care. And it is very common and very easy in that energy exchange if our team members are maybe interacting with a patient that isn't quite their best or is in pain or suffering, that they might not feel their best. So I shared with you that sort of opening visualization. Now you can open your eyes now. But I shared it with you because I want you to understand it is 100% possible that you can actually help navigate your teams through many of these challenging situations in the way in which you interact with them every single day. And I know what you're thinking, because some people have even said this to me. You don't know what it's like at where I work, right? I've got a lot of people that are complaining, or they're not happy, or they've got, they're bringing their personal drama to work. I'm going to remind you, you have to refocus and shift your mind a bit here. You have to remember why you entered the field of healthcare and why your team members entered the field of healthcare. because they had this sort of belief system that they were going to be able to provide care and support and help heal people. They're going to meet great people and family and just feel good inside because they're making a difference in a field that really matters. And that is 100% true. The only difference is you're managing a workforce, some of which that workforce went through COVID and had those experiences and need a little bit of healing of their heart from the great sadness, as I call it, that darkness and that despair that they were meant to work through and live through, and it still is clinging to the innermost parts of their bodies. And maybe you have part of your workforce that didn't have any of those experiences because they're brand new into the workforce. Regardless of those two distinct groups of people, you still have a responsibility as a leader to actually help them on this journey. Listen, I know that it's difficult and challenging, but I would ask you, shouldn't all of us show up every day and feel like the work we're doing is giving us joy and happiness? I mean, shouldn't we feel like the work we're doing every day has meaning? And shouldn't we feel like we are confident in our ability to provide care? And that is what's so tricky in this equation when you are a leader, because the pandemic did change things for people, right? No other time in our history, well, I should say, in many different fields of healthcare, right, especially like emergency room trauma, people have experienced pain and suffering to a great extent when they're dealing with mass casualties or lots of injuries of people. They've seen things like that firsthand and experience. But COVID was different because it didn't matter what part of healthcare you were in, you were still experiencing that everywhere you went. And so that over time really had an impact on the way somebody might be feeling and the way they're approaching their day. And so this call to action for you as a leader to take some type of action is really designed so that you help in this journey to push aside those old ways of doing things. And you're making room now for growth and transformation of your team. And that's an intentional piece that has to happen. I mean, every single leader that I talk to in the field of healthcare, we all just wish we could wave that magic wand and just get it out, right? And let it go away. And can't we just get back to the way we used to do things going forward? But I think it's indicative of what we see in our world, right? We all need healing as healthcare workers. And the pandemic, yes, many people need healing. But it's a reminder that every single day, the people that come into your workplace, they're going to need healing because they are a healer. And so they're going to need a leader to really step up, make sure they're engaged, and they're really looking at this from that lens of, I care about you so that you can continue to provide great care to others. Listen, you know this. Leadership is not about you dictating to other people and telling them what tasks they have to do. It's really about inspiring people. It's really about looking at people from that lens of what is it about that person? What is it that they do really well? How can I unlock a hidden potential? How can I give them an opportunity by maybe igniting something that's an intrinsic motivator for that individual? Because again, everybody is unique and different, and what works for one person is not going to work for another. So this is why it's challenging when it comes to leadership, because it requires that we have to be paying attention. We have to really work on our coaching skills because we want to work at a place where the leaders, right, are working together, guiding their teams all towards a common goal. And for the post-pandemic sort of leaders, I think for many of us, it's time now for us to let go of the complaining, right? And make sure that there's no negativity that's kind of surfacing and still existing in our workplace. I mean, I know for me during the pandemic, it was extremely challenging pushing a med cart. I worked in long-term care. And so I understood what it was like the physical and emotional aspects of that, trying to deliver care and not being able to do it the way I normally had to do it. I had to learn from people on the internet and learn how people were doing it as best practices. I mean, everybody did this. We did this globally around the world. We learned from one another. I think of all those respiratory therapists that figured out how to share respirators, right? Ventilators, one ventilator for two people, right? That came as a result of really people just solving problems and really looking at things from that critical thinking lens. And that's so incredibly important. So you all know me. I am a big believer that when it comes to leadership, if you're not taking that step back and that step up, especially when there's challenging situations or you're dealing with things that are challenging to you professionally, if you're not stepping back and stepping up to look at it from a higher perspective, you are going to run the risk that you are going to see it from a lower level. And as leaders, sometimes it means not only just stepping back and stepping up, but it sometimes means that we have to ask a whole lot of questions. And I'm going to remind you of that proverb, right? The people closest to the problem usually have the solution. And so this is where restraint comes in with leadership sometimes, is it's a balance, right? We have to very often really hold back and say to somebody, tell me, what are your thoughts on this? Why is this still repeating? I mean, you might think you secretly know the reasons for that, but trust me when I tell you, show some restraint when it comes to, looking at things from that lens of awe and curiosity, and pull yourself back a bit to force yourself to look at it from a different perspective, to look at it through the eyes of that caregiver. I promise you that is going to be a game changer for you. And I'm going to remind you, if you're wondering why we need to do this, like why we need to engage differently, why we need to heal the hearts of our healthcare workers, why I'm asking you as leaders to get involved, because we need a new narrative. We need people to stay in our field. We need people to love what they do. We need people to do really well at healing, because that's what they were designed to do. And that involves leadership. So how do we do it? Well, I'm going to tell you, I always believe that a lot of this starts with presence, right? It's 100% driven by the presence of a leader. And so when I talk about presence, I mean, some of it is just, slowing down your pace, making sure that you are actually present and you're engaging with people as human beings, one-to-one, right? You're not looking at people as positions, right? You're looking at them as human beings, right? That deserve to be noticed, recognized, rewarded, right? Those are all characteristics as a leader that we need to be focusing and zeroing in on. But sometimes I want to believe in our busyness. We're running around, right? Because we're so incredibly busy getting to either that meeting or having to get that project done because somebody's calling us or emailing us or texting us, that we don't even we don't slow our pace down to connect with that one person that we see struggling in the hall, whether that's a housekeeper or somebody, that just stopping for a moment and helping would be a game changer for that individual. So part of this journey for me is always, when I talk about presence, I'm going to say to you, your ultimate goal is that you have people that work under you that are compassionate caregivers, right? They are able to deliver care regardless of the situation, right? And for me, when I think of compassion, I think of love and exchange of giving and receiving love. And to me, the best caregivers are the ones that's what they do. They deliver everything from that spirit of love. That's where it comes. And so that's not going to come from a leader who proudly displays across, their entire organization, listen, everybody, my door is open. If you have a problem, come see me, right? Everybody that knows me knows that I think that's really a lazy form of leadership. I think the way we do it is we engage, we round, we do it regularly, we do it at different intervals so that our staff see that they are valued, that a leader's taking time out of the day to actually do that. And I think it's so incredibly important as leaders because we set the tone to do that. And I'm reminded of a story. Oh boy, I wish I could remember the book. I'll put it in the comments, I promise, in the podcast. But I'm reminded of a story that I read once in a book about a CEO of a company that was really frustrated. It was in manufacturing. It was really, really frustrated. He could not get leaders in the manufacturing plant to get staff members to throw the garbage away. It was like filthy, and every time he would round and round and round, he would just get so frustrated. They must have said it hundreds of times, and none of the staff were doing it. Right. And so finally came up with this brilliant idea to get these big, gigantic, 55-gallon drums, and they labeled everyone garbage. And what he said was key. He said to every plant manager and supervisor and whoever was in leadership in that manufacturing plant, for the next 2 weeks, every time you walk this plant and you see garbage, I want you to bend down, pick it up, and throw it in the garbage. I think it was so remarkable, right? Because how long do you think it took before the plant was clean and the staff were doing it? It took 1 week, 7 days. Right? So it just shows you the power, right? When leaders are engaged, when they're involved, when they're circulating, when they're rounding, there's incredible power to that. And we have to remember that. It's so incredibly important. And we all need to find moments in our day where we're helping our staff and our team members through our interactions and our connections to find laughter and joy and happiness and praise and recognition and gratitude. Like that has to be part of our daily practices, right? That we're sort of those joy seekers, like making sure that we're seeing positivity, and when we're not, we're doing it out of love, pulling somebody aside and doing effective coaching by saying, is something going on? Because I'm noticing you don't seem to be having a good day and I want to help you. I mean, you're a caregiver and I want to make sure that I'm caring for you. I mean, that's a game changer for people if leaders really look at it from that lens. So I'm going to challenge you when you go back into your workplaces that you look at the opportunities that you have to actually do this. And you can't do this if you don't get to know your people, right? It's impossible. So if you don't know your people, you're not connecting with them, you're not finding ways to connect with them, they're just going to see, the big wigs walking through, right? Or maybe the manager walking through and, oh, God, we all got to do a good job because, they're walking through, they're going to check on us. Connect with people, talk to people, get to know people, right? It's so important because those connections and those formed connections build relationships, and it makes a person feel valued, that somebody is taking the time out of their day. So whether you're a supervisor, you're a manager, you're a director, you're a VP, it doesn't matter. Whether you're the CEO, the most important thing is making sure you get to know people. When I was consulting, I'll never forget one time I was doing focus groups, and I remember somebody telling me, what do you do when you walk in the elevator and a senior leader doesn't even say good morning or hello? And I was like, woo, right? What do? You say good morning. How are you? Right? You lead by example. But as leaders, we got to get better at this, right? This is something that absolutely has to happen. We need to see that we're working from that place of that we actually care about people because we're in the business of caring, right? We expect that our staff are going to care. So why would it be unthinkable that the leaders would care for their caregivers, right? That should come all together. That's an expectation. And especially for your staff that are experiencing challenges. Listen, we all need healing. If you haven't figured it out, people that come to your work every day, you don't know anything about them. They're probably really good at disguising burden and stress and struggle and lots of things that are maybe happened to them in the past or are happening to them currently. It's a really astute leader that's paying attention, that's formed the relationship, can understand, hey, I'm noticing a subtle change in somebody. They're slowly starting to get disengaged. Instead of it being about me and me thinking it's all about them, right? I'm looking inward and I'm saying, hey, what's going on? How can I help you? Because I care about you, and I want you to know that. And I think that's incredibly important. So to do that work and do it really well, it means as a leader, you have to actually dispel assumptions and biases that you might have about an individual. And I will tell you, in all the work that I've done in leadership and coaching, this is a tough one for people, but it doesn't need to be that difficult. It just means when you look at a person, you see another human being. You don't form judgments based on their opinions. You don't think about them or put them in a little box based on what you believe you see in them. You look at that person as a human being. I mean, that's what a true leader should be doing. Because when you work from that place, you'll see someone's potential. You'll see all the things that are good in them. If you start out right away and you're putting people in that box and you're sort of labeling the person based on what you're seeing, oh, they're lazy, right? Or you're starting to notice things, all of a sudden, very quickly, you now have shifted your perspective and you will not see the good in them. I guarantee you, all you will continue to see is the things that they're doing wrong. So as a leader, we have to do that. We need to do that. And how do you actually do that? Well, a lot of it is that we have to really think about the way we use this brain up here to actually guide our intellect, right? And how we're making sure that we're doing the work that we need to do to actually focus on those things that are positive and focus on what's going well and right and making sure that we're recognizing that. And that becomes part of our pattern and our routine. And, I love the work that's done in the book. Well, there's several books by Rick Hansen. I love all of his work. I think he's amazing, and he's done amazing work. And you can Google him and you can watch his YouTube videos. But I really, really love this book about hardwiring happiness because he really talks and explains very succinctly how we can actually do this every single day through creating new patterns and routines and what we know about the research in neuroscience and what we know now about neural pathways and how they are constantly forming. It was no longer like the old ways that we thought like 20, 30 years ago that your brain developed over time and then that was it, right? He's really done focuses on some of this extraordinary work and what we know to be true. And so I love this because as a leader, we always have to look inward, right? We always have to look and say, am I the most positive person? Am I a positive influencer? Am I a person that's showing that I'm ready for change? Am I able to be ready for change? Am I adaptable? Am I flexible myself? Or if somebody asks something of me in an urgent situation, do I act like it's the worst possible thing that could have happened? It's incredibly disruptive. And so if those are the behaviors that you're exhibiting outward, then it should be no surprise that your team members are doing the same thing, right? Because people look up to leaders and they say, how's my boss doing? Okay, that gives me permission to do same. So if you are modeling the way as a leader and you're that role model, then absolutely 1,000% people are going to be looking up at you and they're going to be modeling the way it should be done, right? And I love this because Rick does some amazing reflections on how we can form those new neural pathways and how our brains, I love it in the book how he explains that our brains are sort of hardwired way back in the days of the caveman times, right? Where we always had to worry about fight or flight or something going wrong. So they're hardwired towards the negativity bias. And he describes it as it's like Velcro in our brains. Like everything just naturally sticks there, right? And the good stuff slides off like Teflon. It doesn't really adhere. And so we have to do our part to actually change that. But the good news is that we know from the research that we can rewire our brains. So we do that through making sure that when those positive experiences are happening, as leaders, we're holding on to that feeling and we're allowing that feeling to kind of channel through our body, all those positive feelings for at least 10 seconds, right? For 5 to 10 seconds. The average person does it, 2 to 3 seconds? So the more you do that, the more you do it, the better you're going to become. You're going to create those sort of off ramps in your brain to get that positive mindset sort of fixed and part of your natural routine. So if that's not something you're currently doing, or you feel like you're working yourself from a place of negativity, and believe me, most people are, because look at our world. I mean, how many light bearers are you seeing out there that are like, yay, we can do it, right? Today's a new day. I will tell you, it's all formed through practice in leadership, and it really is about just getting into a normal habit. I talk about it all the time. I had to develop this competency of, resiliency despite adversity. It took me 3 years to do it. Practiced everything under the sun. And I really knew I needed to get to that place where I treated every single day as a new day. And regardless of what happened the day before, I could just shake it off, get everybody excited again, and today's a new day. I mean, that's exemplary leaders, and that's really what we need to see in healthcare from every single person in a leadership role. It's a game changer when we could get there. But I really do like in the book how Rick sort of highlights, and I want to kind of touch on it. It's actually on page 50 of the book. And I want to touch on this because he talks about how our brains react in sort of two different ways. It can be from a place of being where we're responsive and a place where we're reactive, and that we actually have a choice in the way we do that. And I want to touch on some of this because I think it's so incredibly powerful. Because again, he outwardly just kind of points to this, that our brains, there are two ways that our brains operates: responsive and reactive. And the truth is that he says in the book that people want a really good, healthy life. And there are billions of people that are walking around this earth, and really that the majority of them really want to live and work together. And they don't want to work in a place where it's like that constant reactivity, and people are, catches people off guard, and it just doesn't make you feel good every single day, where it just becomes more sort of insightful and intentional and more thoughtful, and we're really thinking about those choices. And leaders play such an important role in this. And I love how he talks about the fact that we can change our brain for the better. In particular, you can engage life from that responsive mode as much as possible. And he talks about it being the better path, and that it's an alternative to stress, unhappiness, and conflicts, and a lot of health problems. So actually, how do you develop what he calls this sort of like responsivity bias? I love this because he explains that, when it comes to negativity, there are 5 basic features. Number 1, it gets you reactive when the conditions are challenging. So healthcare, like every day that happens, right? Number 2, we feel uneasy, dissatisfied, and disconnected even when the conditions are fine. So again, those are your people where they're just kind of like a robot. They're kind of just going through, and that might be you as a leader. And if that's you, then that's your call to action, that you need to do something different, right? You might be operating from that place. Number 3, we overlearn from those bad experiences. Again, how many times does this happen where we're thinking about things over and over and over again? We're trying to replay it. I know I've done this as a nurse 100 times. Very early in my nursing career, if I made a mistake or I made an error, I would just sit and think about how I could have done it differently. And, it can breed insanity because we're not meant to do that, right? We're meant to accept the fact that this mistake happened. This was the reason, the root cause. We're going to fix this going forward. I'm going to give myself the peace to know that this was a learning experience, not going to happen again, right? We got to get better at that. Number 4, becoming quickly sensitized towards reactivity. So that is our ability to just recognize, are we being activated? How sensitive are we to that, our conditions that are around us, right? Do certain people trigger you? Do certain people sort of activate you much quicker than others, right? And number 5, it's returning slowly to the responsive mode, even when the coast is clear. And I just love this work because as leaders, I think one of the things that I want you to just recognize, I think it's so incredibly important, is that the energy that you face, that you bring to work every single day, right? The way you approach work every single day, that is going to absolutely 100% affect your teams, and vice versa, right? So that's why it's so incredibly important. It's so important as leaders to set expectations, to model the way as a role model, and to hold staff accountable when there's slippage, right? And and we do it from a place of love. And there is a big difference, and I want to point this out. There is such a big difference in the people that need to truly be managed out because they're just not in the right field, right? It doesn't matter who coaches them or points these things out. That person is not going to change. Their journey looks very different because it's driven by their own ego, right? And those are the people that we help to say, this might not be the field for you. But again, that's done through somebody that has the experience as a coach and can actually do those skills well, right? The majority of people are kind of navigating this earth and they're not even realizing they're doing what they're doing. And so it really takes somebody to come to them from a place of love, compassion, and not judgment, but to really create those conditions to how somebody can look at something from a different perspective. And we always want to train people to look at things from a place of empathy, right? Everybody that knows me, I'm a nurse educator. You know, I spend my days creating content and working with organizations in long-term care and supporting facilities so that leaders can have content in services that can be directed to staff to make them sort of look at things from that different lens. And it's so important to provide outstanding education. I cannot stress this enough. So as a leader, when you're interacting with staff, I want you to be thinking, you're educating, right? You might not be an educator, but you essentially are educating. So when I create education, I really use a 3-step model. I make sure that my content engages people in their mind. So that really is me activating their intellect through logic and by making sure that they understand and make that connection of what are the standards of practice, what are the things that we need to be doing, the how we need to do it. Then I engage with the heart, right? That's so incredibly important because that's the center of our emotions, right? It's what activates our emotions. And if you look at caregivers, right, and the work that they're doing, it's so challenging and it's so difficult and it's so hard, right? But if they have somebody that's really helping them see, like pull your emotions out of this, right? Just look at it from that lens of just self-compassion and empathy. Like put yourself in that person's shoes. Again, I think, it is incredibly impactful. And then it's creating the path by showing them, why is this important? And again, it's not just about the regulatory requirements. It's making people understand when you work in healthcare, we support people who are sick. They are not at their best. They come to us to get well. They need to come to a place where the leaders have really created the conditions for healing to occur. And that's done through leadership. And that's done through your culture. That's done through the way in which you create those conditions. And so always think about when you're coaching and you're interacting with people, how are you kind of using the intellect, the heart, and shaping the path, right? How could you do this differently, right? Absolutely. And sometimes as a leader, you do have to be very prescriptive, right? There are certain things where we can't just say, well, how would you do it differently? Because standards of practice tell us you must do it this way. And that's totally acceptable. But I'm saying in general terms, again, remembering that the people closest to the problems usually have the solutions, like creating that sense of empowerment and asking for people for their ideas and their opinions is really just going to take you to a different place. It's going to take you to a place where people feel engaged and they feel empowered, like their voice is being heard. Listen, the best career advice I got from a mentor a million years ago was just like, close this mouth and ask more questions. I know you know the answer, Arlene. Don't tell your staff the answer. Ask them through questions, right? Your goal is to get people to really think about things from a different perspective. And for those of you that are like, I don't have the time or the energy to do that, I know, I get it. It's faster all the time. It's faster just to tell somebody, this is how you do it. But that's not going to grow people. It's not going to create curiosity. It's not going to create a culture of learning where people want to grow and they want to get better. That's just going to make people run after you and look for you and search for you when you're not there, or track you down, or be paralyzed because they can't get themselves out of a tissue box. So as a leader, we have a responsibility to create those conditions. And so I want you to remember that the people that you hire, these people are your healers. So to be the best version of themselves, they have to be supported by somebody that cares for them. And that's really you. So you have to look inward, right? And so, if I'm looking into your heart, I would be asking you, how are you showing your passion? How are you showing that you're engaged? How are you showing that love, that empathy, that care, right? How is that part of your everyday? And if it's not, then you need to begin there. And again, I'm going to tell you, we have to think about our environment more. I feel like, we could spend days talking about this, but our environment matters, right? And I remember this, oh God, a million years ago. I think everybody should be in counseling. But many, 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 many years ago, my husband and I went into marital counseling, and it was a game changer for both of us, I think. Just really broadened our love and just got us to that next level. But I remember our counselor saying, like, I want you to look at the 5 closest friends you have, and I want you to really look at them, because that's going to be a picture of your life in 5 years, right? And so if you're around people that are complaining all the time, right, and that don't love their spouse, pretty much in 5 years, that's where you're going to be. So sometimes we have to change our environment. We have to change the conditions. And, fun fact, a koi fish, it will grow based on the size of its environment. So it'll either be 4 inches or 42 inches. It doesn't really matter, right? It's the conditions that make that person grow. And so sometimes you have to look at your environment and you have to make sure that the people within it are really respectful of, this is a place of healing, right? We're all here to work together as a team, to support one another. We're not here to complain, because that does nothing for anybody, right? That just takes the energy, and it interferes with really true healing. And we're here to really focus on mind, body, spirit, and that includes me making sure that you're good too. And are you good? Are you okay? And I love those words, are you okay? I can't say that enough, because I feel like sometimes we're so busy as leaders running around, right, that we don't often think about, like, when we see someone struggling. We've all seen people struggle, right? We maybe see that one CNA that might be struggling, right, with getting through to a resident, or getting a resident to actually do something. Or it could be a nurse that's struggling with family member yelling at them. Or it could be a respiratory therapist. Doesn't matter. We've seen struggle. It could be your housekeeper. It's anybody, right? We've seen people struggle. We know what that looks like. So sometimes just like approaching a person and just saying, like, can I help? Are you okay? I just want you to know I'm here for support. It's just one simple thing that we can all integrate into our practices every single day, and that's really going to help us. So part of this journey is really going to be you helping to create the best version of you as a leader. When I did this exercise in the Healing the Hearts podcast, that wasn't for leaders. It's really the same work. And I'm going to challenge you to really think about it. The idea actually came from this great book that I really do love. It's called Journal to the Self. It's from Kathleen Adams, and it's a real interesting book. I'm a big journal person. I write everything down, pen to paper. I'm always just trying to look at things from a lens of self-reflection. And I think sometimes in the current and in the moment when you're writing things down, you don't always see it. But when you look back, you think, oh, my goodness, I can really see that. My journals from COVID are very clear in that. I couldn't see that in that time, but I see it now. But in the Journal to Yourself, Kathleen has a whole bunch of different exercises. And one of the things I really love is this idea of, taking a blank sheet of paper like this out, right, and putting a plus on the one side and putting a minus on the other, and you're folding the paper in half. And on this sort of right side, you're really setting, well, first you set a timer, let's just say, for 5 minutes. It could be 5 minutes, it could be 10 minutes. It's really as deep as the work that you want to do in the time that you have. And I'm going to tell you, you absolutely want to do this work, because it's just going to make you a better person, a better human, a better leader. And you want to be that type of leader where people come home from a hard day's work and say, you know what, I had the worst day ever, but thank God Joe was here today, because if he wasn't here, it would have been 1,000 times worse. right? You don't want people to go home and complain about you and say that you sat in your office all day or you weren't connected or you didn't take action or you didn't even offer to help or you walked by without saying hello or all the 100 of different things that you could be doing, right? So on this the plus side, I want you, again, this is where you got to be real honest with yourself. Not like what you want to be, but what you are now currently. So on the plus side, I want you to put the things that you want to see in yourself, like as a leader. And it could be like you're saying, like, I want to be more patient. I want to be more self-aware of myself. I want to know people's names, right? I want to build time into round. It doesn't matter what it is. It's specific to you, right? And on the negative side, I want you to really look at those things that you want to start getting away, right? I don't want to be sitting in my office all day, right? I want to make sure that I'm not walking by people without saying hello. Like all of those things that you know are not going to build and form a strong team. And I want you to put those down because that's incredibly important. Again, pen to paper and focus on the things that are within your control. Not like my boss won't let me do this. I don't care about that. Focus on things that you can do, right? Everybody can walk around, engage, talk to people, and make sure that people feel valued because the work they do is really hard. It's full of challenges. It's physical. It's emotional. And people need their cup filled up every single day to replenish what was left. Right? That's a given fact. And so don't forget, when you go through this exercise and you list down the things you want to see, then, cross a line across the center and start thinking about, like, what are the things you're going to commit to? And this is where I've seen leaders make mistakes. Like, you're trying to boil the ocean and you're trying to fix like everything in yourself that's on that list. Don't do that. Prioritize it, just like in leadership, right? We prioritize. We choose the things that are going to be most impactful. And maybe it's like the things you never, ever do. It could be you work from your strengths and you say, I do this, but I don't do it consistently. So I'm going to work there. Choose one or two things and just that's what your plan is every day for the next, couple weeks. And you're going to do it until you're consistently doing it and it's now part of your routine. So don't be sort of bound by this idea of, oh, I have to get this done in 2 weeks. Just let it free flow, right? And that's what I want you to think about. And I want you to remember when it comes to you as a leader, the reason why I'm telling you to do this and I'm asking you to go on this journey is you're leading a multicultural and multi-generational workforce in healthcare. Everybody is doing the same thing, right? That of itself, it's full of challenges. And so you can be that person that's the person that is able to see change. You're the person that's able to see that there's beauty in that. Right? When people see different perspectives, and as a leader, we do our homework and we bring people together and we integrate them into the team and we make sure everybody knows what the expectations are and we're guiding and directing that and we're helping team members when there's conflict and people aren't seeing alternate sides and we're doing that through good coaching. When we do that piece, you're going to see it's going to be a game changer for you, 100%. And I want you to remember as you go on this journey, be really mindful of your own energy. And this, for some of you, is going to be a lengthy journey. For others, you'll be quite aware, right? I mean, very, very quickly, if I'm agitated and I'm coming in, I'm going to make everybody feel that way. But if I'm coming in a state of like calm and peace, and I'm encouraging and I'm inspiring people and I'm letting people know, like, I know we had 2 call outs, like, and I know this is terrible. I know it's not what you expected, but we're going to get through this together. Don't worry, we're going to do this and we're all going to be a part of this. So again, the point of this exercise and getting you to really think about this is to get you to a state of consistency. And I want you to always remember as a leader, you have a choice. You have a choice every day. You can choose to just be that leader that really doesn't focus on their development or growth, doesn't really think it's important or valuable. And I'm just going to kind of exist as status quo. Or you can be that leader that says, I know and recognize that I've been given a gift, and with that gift comes responsibility. And while I'm here in life school learning all of these important lessons, I'm going to make sure that I am leading by example in every situation possible. And when you choose that path, I promise you, it will be a game changer in your organization. It will change your culture. It will change the way care is delivered, because every single person will fall in line. And those that don't fall in line, it will be obvious. And those just are different conversations, right? That we coach people, we support people, we help people, but the recognition that sometimes people might just be in the wrong role at the wrong time. And really, it's up to us to give everybody the benefit of the doubt and to support them and help them be the best version, because the work they do is so important. They heal other people, and the how absolutely matters. So I want you to start by doing that exercise today. And I want you to recognize that doing this is just going to give you more confidence. It's going to empower you, and it's going to engage you, and hopefully it's going to motivate and excite you and make you see that a future post-COVID in healthcare, one that is incredibly beneficial, that is healing, that is taking a different direction, that isn't dependent on old ways of doing things, but is really forging ahead to create that place of healing where when people come to us, they know it's going to be a great experience. And that's all within your reach. Listen, thank you so much for joining today. I just have to say, give yourself like a huge round of applause, because you're here and you're doing it and you're listening and you're interested and you want to be that best leader. And trust me when I tell you, it is 100% possible. And if you're that leader that you're really struggling with this, just DM me. I always love to give free advice and just help people in their journey in this world, because someone did it to me. Several of you did it to me, and you all know who you are. You did it for me, and that really helped me be the best version I could be. So thank you for what you do every day. Thank you for making the choice to lead people in healthcare, and thank you for actually helping your team members heal their hearts so they can be the best version of them. Goodbye, everyone.